Welcome back to the Scotti-BYTE channel, and this is Scott. So about 3 weeks ago, I made a presentation where I talked about self-hosting a product called PriceBuddy. That is an online self-hosted price tracker. And what was special about this particular one is that it was hosted over a Cloudflare tunnel. So we're going to do something just a little bit different today. We're going to look at a product that is called PriceGhost. And PriceGhost, as it says here, is a self-hosted price tracking application that monitors product prices from any website, get notified when prices drop, hit your target price, or items come back in stock. And here I'm logged into PriceGhost. At the very top of the page, you have an option to enter a URL of a product that you want to track the price for. I have 15 products that I've entered in here, and my entries are fairly new, so I don't really have a lot of historical data. You have the option here, or the notification here, for the biggest price drops on particular products, and then it will tell you whether a product is in stock or out of stock, and also if it's at its lowest price. And of course, many of mine say they're at the lowest price because I've just entered them in here. If I go ahead and click the view on a particular product, it will show that product, it'll show a price history graph, and it will show a stock availability. We also have the ability to set advanced settings, and those advanced settings are for things like AI. So if I go up here and click on my username in the upper right and go to settings, I can go down to the option for profile information. I can change my password. If I move down to notifications, you can have notifications through Telegram, Discord, pushover notifications, Entify, or Gotify, and Gotify is what I'm using. Next, we have the option for AI extraction, and you can enable AI extraction and also AI verification. And then you can specify your AI provider, and the options here are Google Gemini, Ollama Local if you have a local AI model, and then Anthropic Claude or OpenAI GPT, which I'm using here. You have to obtain an OpenAI key, and I can tell you that for OpenAI, that key is a free key. And then you can specify the model, and you go ahead and save the settings. Next, we have an admin section, and in the admin section, you can turn user registration on or off, and the first user added to the system is going to be the admin, and then you can add other users. The advantage to adding additional users is that other users can track the price of different products. Here we are down at the terminal on one of my Incus servers, and we're going to host PriceGhost inside of an Incus container. If you're unfamiliar with Incus, you'll want to go over and watch my video entitled Incus Containers Step by Step. So here I'm doing an Incus launch, images, Ubuntu 2404. The name of the container is PriceGhost. I'm using both the default profile and the bridge profile, which we introduced in the Incus Containers step-by-step video. We have boot.autostart equals to true, which means that when the Incus server starts, this container starts as well. And finally, security.nesting equals to true allows us to nest a Docker container inside of an Incus container. And since PriceGhost is a Docker application, we'll need that switch. Now that we've created the container, we're going to move inside of it with an Incus shell PriceGhost. And when we initially move inside of it, we move inside of it in the root account, and so therefore we have all of our privileges. So let's do an apt update & apt upgrade -y, which goes ahead and updates the repositories and takes any updates to any parts of the operating system that require updating. Let's install some dependencies, and what we're going to install today will be OpenSSH Server, so that you can SSH into the container and perform regular maintenance such as upgrades to the PriceGhost application. Next, we're installing Nano so we can edit some files, net-tools because that's a convenient way to find the addresses of our network interfaces, and curl in order to install Docker. So we put the -y on the end so that we're not prompted on whether or not we want to install these packages, and here we are installing everything. Now that the basic dependencies are installed, the last thing that we need to do is install Docker from the script on the Docker website, and we do that with the curl command. Now that Docker is installed, we're going to go ahead and add myself a user account, and so I'll do an add user Scott. It'll prompt for a password. Go ahead and enter a password for the account Scott, and go ahead and blow through the rest of the prompts here. Finally, what we want to do is a usermod -a G sudo docker Scott, which adds Scott to the sudo and the Docker groups. Now let's move over to the Scott account with an su space Scott. Let's create a folder for the application and move inside that folder with a make.dir price test in & cd into price test. Let's create a Docker Compose file by doing a nano on compose.yml. And then we're going to go ahead and paste the contents of this Docker Compose file in here. As we look at this file, we have a couple of services. We have a front end, we have a back end, and we have a Postgres. There's nothing really that you need to do to this particular file. You could go out and change the passwords and so on, and the secret, but we also have another file coming up after that. So let's go ahead and do a Control-O and Enter to write the file out, and a Control-X to exit the Nano editor. Per the author's installation notes, we also want to do a nano on .env, and we'll go ahead and paste in the contents of that. We have a couple of database settings, your database username, your database password, and the Postgres database name. And then we have a backend with a secret, and you can go ahead and generate a long and random secret here, the database URL, and then we have this one front-end value. With those set, we'll go ahead and do a Control-O and Enter to write the file out, and a Control-X to exit the Nano editor. Before we can start the application, we need to create two folders. One is the data folder, and the other is the database folder. And then one other thing that we need to do is we need to initialize or create a file that is a SQL file called init.sql, and we're going to do that with the touch command so that that file is created. And then finally, we can perform our Docker Compose up-d, and that will go ahead and download the overlays for the application, create the containers, and start the app. After a couple of minutes, you should see that the application is successfully started, and at this point you can do a Docker PS. You'll have 3 containers, and the Postgres container will list itself as healthy. Let's take a look at the network addresses for the container by doing an ifconfig command, which that command was installed as a result of installing net-tools. As I scroll up here, I can see that device ETH0 has the address of 172.16.2.7, and that's the address of our container and where our PriceGhost application is running. On my web browser, if I go to the address that I just found and I hit enter, it will go ahead and pop up with the PriceGhost login and it will say you have the option to either sign in or sign up. Since we're the first user, we're going to be the admins, so I can go ahead and type in bmsman@gmail.com, which is my email that I want to use for this. And then I'll go ahead and type in a password, and then I'll confirm the password, and I'll say create account. Now that I'm logged into PriceGhost, I'm going to come over here and click this little moon icon to shift myself into dark mode. Here I brought up a web page for a minis forum, Adam Man G1 Pro. I'm going to copy the URL from it, go back over to PriceGhost, and paste in that URL. And then I have the option to check for every 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. By default, it's every 1 hour, and that's fine for me. I'll go ahead and click Add Product, and it will go ahead and bring that up and give me a couple of options. It says that this option at the top is its high confidence option, and so that's the one that I will go ahead and confirm. And then we have one item being tracked here. Currently, it says that that item is out of stock. If I come over here and take a look at it, it does say that it is sold out. So if I come over here now to the username and click on settings, I can click on my changing password option. I can also change my display name. I can go to notifications, and I can turn on notifications for Entify or Gotify or pushover notifications or Discord or Telegram. And then I can go into AI extraction as I showed earlier. And if you enable AI extraction, then it will provide the AI provider. So in this particular case, I know that if I choose OpenAI GPT will give you a API key for free, and it says here, get your API key from platform.openai.com, and if you click on that, it will let you log in and go ahead and create the key. Down here, if I go to the admin options, I have the ability here to also create users. If you prefer to turn off user registration, as I do, you can go ahead and click user registration off, which immediately disables user registration. And so therefore, you would have to create all of your PriceGhost accounts for users. Finally, if you want your PriceGhost application to be accessible outside of your network, you would want to go over to your Nginx proxy manager and create a proxy host. In my particular case, I created prices.scotti-BYTE.com, which means that I went out to my DNS provider. I added a CNAME record for prices, which points to Scotti-BYTE.com. And then here in Nginx Proxy Manager, I'm forwarding over to 172.16.2.40, which is the address of my production container, and it forwards to port 80. I went ahead and set up block common exploits, and WebSockets is turned on. And then I went over to the SSL tab, and I went ahead and created a new certificate for prices.scotti-BYTE.com. I came back and I turned on Force SSL and HTTP and HTTP/to support. And then I went ahead and clicked Save. So in summary, I would have to say that PriceGhost provides quite a few additional options over PriceBuddy, which I covered a few weeks earlier. Anyway, that's it for today. Please subscribe and like to the channel, and don't forget to hit your notification bell, and we'll see you next time.